guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking all about tips and tricks for a natural delivery. I am making this video not because I am a professional child birther or work in the profession of labor and delivery. I have no experiences other than my own personal experiences. Everything I'm sharing with you is basically just what happened to me and how I felt and things that helped me to be able to have a natural delivery for myself. While I can only give you advice from my own personal experience, I will say that these are the things that worked for me. If this is your first time watching one of our videos, thank you so much, welcome. We'd love to have you subscribe to our channel. So let's just move right into it. I think if you're someone that wants to have a natural delivery, then I think it's very important that you go into it with an open mind. There are many things that can happen that maybe will complicate things, or your plans might have to change, and you don't want to be caught up in it's going to be one way and everything's going to go like this, because you just don't know. Even if you've had kids before, you really don't know how every pregnancy and every delivery is actually going to go and going to happen. So it's just easier for you if you have an open mind, so if things change, then you can adjust and keep moving on. And if you are also watching this video, I think you're doing the right thing, unless you're just watching it out of curiosity. But if you're watching it because you are currently pregnant and expecting to have a baby soon, then I think that is one step in the right direction, is to be able to create as much awareness as you can of scenarios and situations and how you might feel, and being able to kind of mentally prepare for that, I think, is a huge part of being able to have a natural delivery. However, I do want to say, if you are educating yourself on all things giving birth, then you need to let go of all those preconceived notions that maybe you're hearing horror stories, or you've heard it's going to be like this. You kind of need to let it go, because you might just scare yourself into thinking that it's worse than it is. But I do think there is a way to prepare yourself without just like thinking, oh my gosh, I heard this is going to happen and I heard it's so terrible. You need to let that go. Along those lines, you can go ahead and take all kinds of birthing classes to really educate yourself on how to be prepared. I personally never have. I don't necessarily regret not doing it, because I've been able to have 3 successful deliveries. However, I think if I would have, it might have made those deliveries a lot easier. I know for a fact that if you can practice good breathing techniques, which you don't have to go to a class to learn that, you can find it on YouTube or you can talk to a friend. Breathing techniques are a huge part of your natural delivery. I don't know if you guys have watched the video I had. I've uploaded my last delivery, but in there the nurse is really helping me be able to breathe, and kind of like the sounds that you need to make that kind of help you kind of push down, and it just, I don't know, it really made a big difference learning how to breathe correctly during labor. I think that was like a big thing, and so all those sorts of things that you can do to educate yourself are always a good idea. Granted, you don't have to do them. Don't feel like if you didn't take a birthing class and you can't deliver naturally. I remember the night before I went into labor with my last baby, and I was actually being induced the next morning, so I was like knowing that I'm gonna have the baby, and so I just couldn't sleep, and I just spent all night looking up on YouTube like, how am I gonna do this? Even though I had done it before, I was obviously scared to do it again. So I was just looking all this stuff up, and one lady, I watched her video and I was shocked, and I was like, oh my gosh, and then I had to just get it out of my head. But she said, if you're not prepared and you haven't been preparing for months and months and practicing for months and months, you're not going to be able to have a natural childbirth. And I was like, I haven't been practicing, I am not prepared, I haven't taken classes. And it kind of caught me off guard, and I was like, okay, I can't have a natural childbirth. And then I was like, wait a second, no, she's wrong. You totally can. It's never too late to get yourself ready, even if it's the night before. You can do it if it's something you want to do. So along with that, I think there is a lot of false information out there, and I shouldn't say false because it may be true for that person, but it may not be true for you. And so you don't want to build up your idea of what's going to happen based on someone else's experience. One example of this that I hear like on a regular basis, okay, is like, oh my gosh, I had a 15-pound baby and wow, that must have been so hard, or oh, she had a 5-pound baby, that must have been so easy. Like, get that all out of your head. It's not true. First of all of us are sized and shaped differently. The size of babies that we can physically have differ for each of us. I know for me personally, all my babies have been around 7 pounds, and so this last baby, she was measuring large, and so doctor's like, oh, we need to induce you because I don't know if your body can handle a larger delivery than that. Granted, she was born and she was only 7 pounds something, so like it all worked out. I was actually talking to one of my good friends about this personally. She has had 6 kids. I hope she's watching this video because we talked about this. And she is amazing. First of all, she has had 6 kids, and that is mind-blowing to me. Like, that's amazing. And she has pretty large babies. Like, I think she said 10 pounds, around 10 pounds each. And she said by far the easiest delivery she had was her largest baby. And she's like, think about it this way. Imagine if you had a watermelon in your tummy and you squat, it's just gonna fall out. It's just not gonna stay in there. It's just gonna come right out. And so I'm not saying if you have a big baby, oh, don't expect it to hurt. It probably still will hurt. Your ability to birth a bigger baby won't be as hard as maybe you're thinking it is. And then, for example, when I was doing some research on this topic, if you have a premature baby, then it actually probably hurts a lot worse. And that premature baby is going to be significantly smaller than a 10-pound baby. And the reason for that is because your body's not quite ready to go into labor. And so your hormones aren't softening everything up and getting everything prepared. Let's say as if you went over term and then your body's just ready to get the baby out. Another thing I've heard, obviously I only know from my experience, but bigger babies are more able and capable of almost helping assist in getting out, whereas little babies are less developed and they're not able to assist in that way. Probably doesn't make much sense, but if you've had a baby, you might know what I'm talking about. Anyways, so my whole point of all of that is to really not get caught up in what you hear from other people and like, oh, it's gonna be so bad if it's like this. Just don't get caught up in it. But if you are planning on having a natural delivery, then you do need to expect to have some pain. It's going to hurt, and that's that. It's okay. You can handle the pain. So that's gonna bring me to my next point. During your contractions, just when you think that you cannot go through another contraction, it just hurts so bad, there's no way you can survive a worse contraction, it's going to get worse. But then suddenly, it's all going to be done. It's all going to be over. It's everything, every single one of my kids, just when I thought like, I can't do this, I can't do it, I cannot survive this, I won't survive, it was over. That was the end of it. Suddenly my baby was there. Your body progresses in a way that once it gets to a certain threshold, the baby is ready and you're there. So I guess my point for that is just when you think you can't handle it anymore, just hang on a little bit longer because your baby is right around the corner and then everything will be over. And that brings me right to my next point. Don't be afraid of the actual pushing. From my personal experience, all 3 of my babies, the contractions were so much more painful than the actual delivery of the baby. And I know that probably is like, why is that a good thing? But if you can get through the contractions, then you can do the delivery. For me, it's an odd sense of relief. It feels so good to have that baby. After you've been sitting there with a baby in your belly for 9 months and you can't breathe and you can't sleep, it feels amazing to have that pressure release just go. Like, I can't even explain how that makes sense, that having a baby, like, it should be really painful, but it actually feels so good. I've even had an episiotomy with no epidural, and it just, like, it didn't hurt. It wasn't painful because there was so many other things going on. That, like, cut was just minuscule. It did not compare to the contractions, to be honest. The contractions, that's the worst part. So if you can make it through the contractions, you can make it through the delivery. I wouldn't be afraid of that if I were you, from my experience. I should have said this one kind of in the beginning, but it's such a simple thing, but make sure your support team is on board with you. If you decide that you want to have a natural delivery, tell your husband to stand by you and support you, and don't encourage you or suggest to you while you're in the middle of the worst pain of your life, like, maybe we should just get an epidural, that'll take away all the pain. If you want to do it, don't have someone telling you or feeding you ideas like you should just get an epidural. And that goes for your doctor and your nursing staff. Talk about it with your doctor beforehand, not the day of. Your nurses you might not meet until the day of, but, you know, let them know that this is my plan and I'd like your support in that. With my first baby, my nurse was totally against it. The whole time, like, literally every time she checked me, are you ready for your epidural? Are you ready for your epidural? And she just kept asking me, and it was like putting it in my head like, okay, I guess I just need an epidural because this hurts really bad. And then my second nurse was so amazing, and she was just like, hey, if you don't want an epidural, we're gonna get you through without it. In fact, she would come in and she'd say, honey, you don't need it. Like, let's just keep going. You don't need it. You don't need it. And she was so supportive, so amazing. I just got so lucky. And then my third nurse was actually one of my good friends, and I think she would probably suggest that I get an epidural, but she was so supportive of my decision to not. And she was like, you got this, you got this, you got this. And that's what you need to hear when you're in that situation. So I was lucky enough to have a great nurse, my husband and my mom all supporting me in this decision to do something that was very difficult. One thing that I did to help with the pain was taking a bath or using water. Some hospitals, you'll have a bathtub that you can actually get into. My hospital doesn't let you birth in the bathtub, but you can totally hang out in there while you're in labor, and the water just somehow takes a lot of the pressure off, so you can still kind of dilate and progress through your labor without as much intense pain. And I really just felt like that was a lot of relief once I would go and get into the water, or even just take a shower at home before I went. I felt some relief from the contractions. It might be just in my head. I really felt like that I got a lot of relief in the water. Similar to that is changing your position. I know for me, like, it was very difficult to change positions because my contractions were kind of hitting closely, and I didn't want to be moving when a contraction hit. I wanted to be prepared and, like, I don't know, like, be able to just be in the zone when the contraction hit. But I know for me that as soon as I flipped over and changed my position, that progressed my labor quicker, and I actually just like immediately had the baby once I was changing positions. So don't be afraid to change positions, even if it's early in labor. Lay on your side, go on your elbows, try laying on your back if that works for you. Try different things and see what is more tolerable for the pain. I think that's a big thing. Figure out what position is most comfortable for you. Another really good tip, I think, is to figure out what helps you personally cope with pain. I know for me, and this is like embarrassing, but for me, coping with pain is kind of like a lot of yelling. And so when I'm in labor, I'm not like screaming or anything, but I'm like, oh, like I need to kind of express it, and that helps me cope with the pain. Letting it out like verbally helps me be able to handle the pain. There's definitely a lot of better ways to cope with it, but for me it's kind of verbally, and I am kind of shy and I'm kind of like embarrassed when I'm doing it, but at the same time I don't care. It helps me get through the contractions, and I know my nurses and doctors don't care because this is their job and they do it all day, and there's nothing they haven't seen. So I tried not to be too embarrassed. The next one I want to share with you is kind of obvious, but I personally didn't think of it until after, and I was like, I should have used that as motivation to myself. But it's to prepare yourself, like prepare your body physically. You wouldn't just show up to a marathon without having trained for it. You would just not be able to handle it, right? And so the same thing goes with giving birth. Not that you can practice giving birth, well, you can actually, but not that you can actually go through birth to practice for the event, but you can do things to take care of your body so that when the time comes you have stamina, strength, the ability to birth. And I think that is one thing that has made my deliveries significantly better. I was fortunate enough to be raised in a very active family, and so through each of my pregnancies I worked out the entire pregnancy, and I really believe that that helped my labor progress better. And when it came time to actually deliver, my deliveries were all super quick, and I really attribute a lot of that to exercise. I'm not saying you have to go out there and do anything unhealthy. Don't do that. Take care of your body. I'm talking about walking on a treadmill or walking around the block. I'm talking about keeping your body healthy so that you can perform when the time comes. In fact, I got a really amazing piece of advice from a friend that I have, and he was a guy, so I don't know how he knew to give this advice. He might have just been inspired because he's never had kids. But when I got pregnant with my first baby, I was actually trying out for my college track team, and I was in the middle of it, and I really think that I was this close. I think that was the next part of my life. I remember I had a race, and it was actually a pretty good race, and then right after that I found out I was pregnant, and me and my husband were not really expecting it. We weren't really planning on it, but yeah, so my plans changed. I was no longer going to be running track, but I was actually going to be having a baby. And I remember talking to my friend who was on the track team, and I was telling him how I was super bummed. I was this was the last chance that I had to do something that was my dream and my passion, and I can't do it anymore because I'm gonna have a baby. I remember telling him I was in the best shape of my life. I have never been in that good of shape. I've never been that fast. I've never been that strong. And he said, well, that's good then. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm throwing all of that away. And he said, no, it's good because you're actually preparing yourself for the hardest thing you're ever going to do physically, and you're in the best shape of your life. So it's good for you. And I was like, you know what? You're totally right. And so I think that's true. You don't obviously need to be in the best shape of your life, but you do need to take care of your body because it is going to do something extremely rigorous. And the better the shape you're in, I think the easier it will make your labor. And I think the last thing that I want to share is the power of positivity. I think if you're in there and you're thinking, I can't do this, then you're going to get yourself down. But if you're mentally telling yourself positive things and giving yourself affirmation, then I know you can get through it. And I know you want to surround yourself with positive things. Like I said, your support group, have everyone be positive towards you. And you know what? It is an amazing and beautiful thing. And even though it's hard, that's almost what makes it so much more rewarding. I encourage you to be positive during the experience, positive leading up to it. I mean, if you watch my channel, then you know I'm not like a hippie or anything. Not that I have a problem with hippies, but I'm not really a hippie. The only reason I prefer natural childbirth to having an epidural is because I'm afraid of needles. It's not that I'm like, oh, I'm just natural. It's just literally because I'm afraid of needles. But I will say that there is strong power in meditation and finding your zone. And for me personally, I can turn to God for strength, or whatever it is that helps you gain strength and power and positivity. Find that and bring that into your life to help you be prepared for this time. And anyways, I hope that some of these tips are helpful for you guys. If you have had a baby, whether it's a natural childbirth or if you had an epidural or a C-section, what are things that you did to cope or prepare? Leave that in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys experienced and what you would recommend. And thank you guys, as always, so much for watching, and we will see you next time on our channel.